Morning all. I just wanted to address clearly a new idea that maybe the videos I've done so far on the importance of checking forcing variations, and then the sort of labelling docking computer and later docking agent, really, okay, we're talking about forcing variations, but there was one commentator on the original video called Chess Coach who says to his students about the importance of basically check all checks. And I think that sounds really simple. It's a very simple version of all the videos I've been talking about so far, because actually it's also emphasizing two major aspects. First of all, that not all checks are going to be good. And remember, we have Fisher's sort of quotation, Pat's a Caesar check, Pat's a plays a check, which the implication is that, you know, weak players, you know, often play checks without really thinking about it much. Not all forcing moves are good, and checks really represent the most powerful type of forcing moves. They're like the legal requirements of the position, in fact. So when you do the idea of check all checks, you're really checking the most powerful forcing moves in the position, and you're not saying that they're necessarily good either. So it's okay, checking for forcing moves. You know, sometimes moves can be the term Zwischenzug can be used. So you might think you're doing a forcing move if you attack the opponent's queen, but the opponent is not obliged to move their queen. They can check you in return. They can sacrifice their queen. They can move, you know, do anything. But a check is like a legal requirement. So I'm coming to the conclusion, and I have used it in blitz games, that actually, as a tool to use in your own games from blitz onwards, as a tool to use, check all checks may in fact be better than the entire docking computer concept, the entire docking agent concept, and definitely better than anything in Kotov's book. 3 simple words have with them 2 huge implications. So if you didn't catch the 2 implications, here they are again. 1, the emphasis of check all indicates that really you are going to evaluate and check the resulting positions. You're not just going to go through this path just because it's a guaranteed if-then path. The second major implication is that you're automatically ordering the forcing moves by the most important. The most important forcing moves are those that are checks, or threatening mate actually is a kind of subset of that, because you know, a mate threat obviously is another thing which is difficult to ignore. So you're trying to order your forcing moves by the most forcing first. So check all checks captures all these aspects. And if we revisit the blown over the ball game I had recently, I've done all the strategic work. You know, the whole game was based on, up to this point, you know, trying to get king safety emphasized of the opponent, whilst trying to minimize the dangers to my king. So not trying to, you know, reinforcing a7 with the bishop, otherwise, you know, looking out for sacks on my own king, trying to get the opponent's king unsafe. And I've reached that point where I've had the luxury of just opening up the scope of the bishop with d3. And he takes, and here is the point, which is a critical point in the game, where if we choose our tool carefully, either docking computer, docking agent, or check all checks, we should be able to find a forced win here. Now, under check all checks, let's do this. Let's check all checks. Okay, so there's queen takes d3 check, but we can rule that out, or can we? Because queen takes queen, pawn takes, and there's nothing immediate which spells the position is winning. Rook h2 might seem dangerous, but it's white's move here anyway, so king g2. And this pawn, you know, the rooks are connected and everything's safe. So queen takes d3. Okay, we've checked that check. What else to check? Queen h3. Now maybe on queen h3, king g1 needs to be checked, and we find queen takes g3 check here because of the pin on f2. Rook takes h1, and rook here mate. So that's a nice one. But queen h3 check, there's alternatives for white here. King e2 and king e1. Now if king e2, again it's starting to get a little bit murky now. Now we can try and check all checks here. We've got queen g4 check, we've got e takes. Now if e takes, you know, maybe queen takes d3. This is still looking very dangerous for the white king, but rook e4 is ruled out because of knight e4 or queen e4. So say check here, and there might be rook d4 here actually. So even this line looks dangerous. But e takes d3, maybe then something like king d2. So we've just examined here queen takes. King d2 or king takes d3 are also worth checking out. And you see, you know, this expression carries with it a lot of work, because there's a lot of checks to check in different variations as soon as the opponent's king is exposed. But there's nothing that immediately indicates this might be completely crushing, because say king c2 in this position, queen f5 is ruled out. That knight is protecting f5, so the king's like chased here. But let's go back and check and use the principle of check all checks again. Now there's a move here which is not an immediate check, but which actually carries with it a tactical motive actually, and well, as well as threatening more checks with rook takes f2. So rook takes h2 causes white to have to defend against the coordinated attack of bishop and rook against f2. So white takes on f2, and I would take. And here in this position, if we check all checks here, again of course there's queen d3, but that doesn't do anything. Queen h3 is the key one here, because rook h1 doesn't do anything. We can check all checks here with rook h1 and see that this doesn't, or does it? f2 is protected by the knight, so there's no major disaster there. But here there's also queen h3 check, and here we should notice that if king e2, then this coordinate attack is crashing through, you know, check and then winning the knight. Furthermore, if king e1, then there's actually in this position a killer check, which I hope you can see if I give you 5 seconds or 10 seconds. Just rook h1 check, and the queen is on the end of this, so this would be clearly winning. So there is a clear win found by a simple expression, much simpler in fact, and clearer and clean cut than the docking computer concept. So an examination of all checks in this scenario, there's an indication of rook takes h2 that the checks are actually going to be lethal. So rook takes h2, and the checks coming up are absolutely lethal, because actually if you think about it, a battery has been introduced still, a rechargeable battery, even though it's going down from 2 rooks to 1. The other queen coming down to h3 creates a new battery of rook and queen for forcing through the new battery. Once that new battery is there, forcing through rook h1. So even if knight takes h1, the queen can crash down and win the white queen. And I believe this method is effective from the blitz games that I've been playing so far. Now what I'd like you to do, to run an experiment and leave comments in the video to see what works better for you during your blitz games or during your longer games. The docking computer concept, the revised docking agent concept, which I'm not really enamored by myself, or this simple idea, I think it's going to be a points winner more than the docking computer myself. This very simple idea of check all checks. And as I say, two main reasons for that. You're ordering by the most forcing moves first, and B, you're saying to check all the checks, not necessarily that they're good. So it's got all the advantages of the docking agent concept as well. So please let me know in the comments of this video how it goes. Thanks very much.